All right, so here is question one from the AP exam. This is our interpreting data question. And this is really what the AP exam this year is going to focus on. So we've got our diagram up here for you guys to read through. The arrows flow from one to the next. Question reads: Auxins are plant hormones that coordinate several aspects of root growth and development. Indole 3 acetic acid, IAA, so that's this one at the end, is an auxin that is usually synthesized from the amino acid tryptophan in figure 1. The gene tryptophan T encodes for an enzyme that converts tryptophan into indole 3 pyruvic acid, I3PA, our middle one right here, which is then converted to IAA by an enzyme encoded by the gene YUK. All right, so that is our setup. Pretty straightforward. Now, if we take a look, you can expect questions that are like the ones that follow. So, A wants you to circle one arrow that represents transcription on this template pathway. And then identify the molecule that would be absent if the enzyme YUK is non functional. So take a moment and identify. You would circle one arrow that represents transcription. Then you need to identify the molecule that would be absent if enzyme YUK is non functional. So starting that off, I'm going to ask you guys in the chat, identify what molecule it is, because I won't see that for a few seconds. And the arrows that are transcription, remember, transcription makes our messenger RNA, which means the arrows that are making the messenger RNA are right here and right there. So you would need to circle one of those two. And then hopefully, if the enzyme YUK is non functional, what isn't going to be made? IAA. Correct. All right, so that was the first part, not too bad. Second, predict how the deletion of one base pair in the fourth codon of the coding region of gene tryptophan T would most likely affect the production of IAA. So take a moment and predict how the deletion of one base pair in the fourth codon of the coding region would affect the production of IAA. So once again, here's the gene tryptophan T. They're saying, what if we have a deletion in the fourth codon set? How would that affect our production of IAA here at the end? Now, once you know what you're going to say for that, now justify your prediction. Now you need to explain in as much detail as you feel is necessary in order to adequately support your idea. So your prediction should be what? Now remember, it's going to be how it affects the production of IAA. So there's only really three opportunities here. It's either going to increase it, decrease it, or keep it the same. Which one do you guys think would happen if we delete one letter out of the tryptophan gene? Hopefully everybody identifies a decrease. Now, how would you justify that? How could you explain why we're going to be getting less IAA? And I know that most of you who are watching right now aren't actively doing this, but please try to think about it because the next step will make it more clear. keep your prediction in mind. We're going to move on to C. Explain one feedback mechanism by which a cell could prevent production of too much IAA without limiting the I3PA production. One feedback mechanism. That's very specific. There are only two feedback mechanisms that we've gone over all year. What are the feedback mechanisms that we went over this year? This is where things like notes could prove very useful if you have it set up. Yes, it is based on the LAC and the tryptophan operons. This one, as a matter of fact, I strongly believe the reason they went with tryptophan right here is because they wanted you to automatically start to think in that vein, in that idea for the things that we went over. So hopefully you guys remember catabolic and anabolic are good ideas, but in this case, it's either positive or negative feedback. And remember, positive feedback just snowballs. Positive feedback just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It just enhances things, which means the feedback mechanism that we would need that could prevent too much and dial it back and control it is going to have to be negative feedback. Now, can you put in anything about that or anything additional that could work without limiting the I3PA production? So I3PA, our intermediary here in the middle, still getting made at the full rate, but our IAA isn't. One possibility would be that our I3PA is going to act as what? Ooh, very good, Matt. Saying something like using the IAA as the co-repressor in order to inactivate the YUK enzyme would be the ideal answer for this. All right, now, don't worry about D and E here. Feel free to take a look at them if you want to, but the bottom line is both of those are ecology questions, and obviously ecology isn't going to be part of the test this year. So, we've answered the first three. Now I wanted to show you the scoring guidelines for this so that you guys can understand the way that question one got scored. So, first, you got 1 point if you could circle either arrow pointing from tryptophan or YUK to the messenger RNA. So, I think we were probably all good there. Then you got 1 point for identifying that IAA. Identify the molecule. All right, B, predict. All right, you got 1 point for saying that it would reduce the IA production or say there would be no production of IAA. And then your justification. You had to go in and actually talk a little bit about how that mutation is going to affect the enzyme. Now, an interesting part about this, I don't want to go to C yet because I also brought up the chief reader report. So this is, once again, the dude in charge of the curriculum, and I want you guys to take a look at this. This question was worth 10 points, max 10 points. The mean score was about a 5, which means that the average was less than half. Now, according to this chief reader report, you can go down through here and see how well did people do it, what parts did they miss or which parts did they fail on. And right here it says in part B, most responses correctly predicted that the mutation described would cause a reduction in IAA. However, not all responses demonstrated correct justification of the prediction. The justification needed to include information on the production of the enzyme or how that pathway would be affected. So this gives you a little bit more information. This Chief Reader report is available to everybody, as are the scoring guidelines, as are the free response questions. So you can actually go through all of them, kind of practice, and then compare what you found. Down here in the Chief Reader report, it talks about each question and the major misconceptions and what responses they were really looking for. So for part B, that justification part, they were looking for answers similar to this one. If a base pair in the fourth codon of the coding region of the gene was deleted, then IAA would not be produced. The altered messenger RNA sequence for the gene would make a non functioning or altered form of the enzyme. Or, if deleted when copied by the messenger RNA, it would not code for the enzyme the same way it would have if it had not been deleted. Therefore, the tryptophan would not be converted into the I3PA, which won't get changed into the IAA. So that's the type of question that you guys should expect for question number 1 on the AP exam. Something where they are going to give you information like this, and then they're going to ask you to identify and understand what's happening from it. Hopefully, seems simple enough. Let's take a look at the other type, which they said will be question number 4. Now, this one, sadly, is one that you guys are might have a little bit of issue because the nervous system is also no longer part of the curriculum for this year. But the idea holds true, right? So here is a big image, and it is talking about how these neurotransmitters move down, cross the synapse to the next neuron, right? And it's labeled release of neurotransmitters into the synapse in a response to an action potential. And then figure 2 is showing the model of a typical action potential in a neuron. Membrane potential, the time in milliseconds, and the threshold needed to trigger. Yeah, and next week we'll work on some more of this. Now for this one, you'll notice, wow, there's an awful lot less that they're asking. Only A and B. The setup. Acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter that can activate an action potential in a postsynaptic neuron, figures 1 and 2. A researcher is investigating the effect of a particular neurotoxin that causes the amount of acetylcholine released from a presynaptic neuron to increase. So first, describe the immediate effect of the neurotoxin on the number of action potentials in a postsynaptic neuron. So, our best guess, describe the immediate effect on the number of action potentials. Once again, that means it's either going to go up, it's going to go down, or it's going to stay the same. If we're making more acetylcholine, more neurotransmitter, what do you think is going to happen? Are we going to get more or less signals, or are they going to stay the same? I would say you should be guessing more because you're getting more neurotransmitters, therefore, there should be more signals. Second part, predict whether the maximum membrane potential of the postsynaptic neuron will increase, decrease, or stay the same. So this is the maximum up here. Do you think this is going to stay the same, increase, or decrease. And you guys are at a real disadvantage for this question. But ideally, what we should see here is we should see that. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna leave it. Keep in mind what you had, kind of like our support for the last one. Keep in mind what you're answering. We'll check it in a moment. And then the second part. The researcher proposes two models, A and B, for using acetylcholinesterase, an enzyme that degrades acetylcholine. In Model A, our enzyme is added to the synapse. In Model B, it is added to the cytoplasm of the postsynaptic neuron. Predict the effectiveness of each proposed model. So, would they be effective or would they be ineffective? For A, where it's in the synapse, and for B, where it's in the cell. Now, I know that you guys don't have the background for this, only if you vaguely remember what we went over in like ninth grade or for some of you eighth grade biology, but give it a shot. And then, for each of your predictions, you need to provide reasoning to support your predictions. All right, so why don't we check the answers on it? So, the answers they're looking for: description for describe, 1 point for saying it will increase the number of action potentials. 1 point on the second half of that for saying that the maximum will stay the same, which is exactly what should happen. Your nerves always fire the same way. They won't fire again until they're fully reset. Once again, you guys right now don't have the background for that, but good job on that one, Emily. Now, the two models, all right, and the reasoning. This is 1 point per row. So for model A, we believe it would be effective because the acetylcholine is in the synapse. You can see it right here. The neurotransmitter has to jump the gap. Meanwhile, we would expect B, model B, where we added the cytoplasm, the postsynaptic cell, to be ineffective because acetylcholine doesn't exist there. There'd be nothing to break down. If it binds the receptors over here, it signals the next trigger. Yes, which is one of the reasons why we're going to be practicing. Now, we can also take a look, once again, at this Chief Reader report. So let's see question number 4. It wasn't a big point question, but you can see it was worth 4 points. The average was 1.5 if we round it. So most people did not do well on this one. And then you can go through and you can see where and how, if you guys read through these Chief Reader reports, you can see what worked and what doesn't. You can see suggestions that they have down here for what else might be really useful, where to find the information. So, with that said, this gives us an overview for the types and the styles of questions that we're expecting to see on this year's AP exam. Hopefully, this little run through has helped and it will be, good preparation as we get closer. Next week, when I see you guys on Monday, what's going to happen is I'm going to have a few more of these. I'll assign them all on Monday. Wednesday, I will be online at our normal noon time just in case people have questions and they want to go over anything. And then what I want to do is on Friday, I'm going to actually put the answers up and have them available for you guys to go over. And once again, I'll be on at noon in case anybody wants to discuss anything.